How's it going, everyone? I get this question quite a bit regarding GPUs and how to properly overclock them. Um, so we're gonna talk about this today because why not? So before I get started, make sure I just burped. Make sure I just burped. Make sure you guys are hitting the thumbs up. Subscribe if you guys are new, and let's talk about overclocking. I know I already did a video on overclocking, but seeing as how we've been getting a lot of new subscribers and most likely they haven't seen that video, let's just talk about it again. Couple things to note when it comes to GPUs and just in general overclocking, regardless of the GPU. Every GPU is made differently. Okay, I want to make that clear for you guys. Every graphics card is different. So just because settings work for one graphics card doesn't mean it's going to work for another, regardless if they're the same graphics card. So if like you have two EVGA 1080s, right? Doesn't mean that they're going to overclock the same. Doesn't mean that you can expect the same exact performance out of those graphics cards. And that has a lot to do with silicon lottery. So I'm going to give you some ideas as to how to overclock your cards, because like I said, I mean, I've had you guys in the comments leaving messages saying that, oh, you know, you have the same 3060 as I do, but it doesn't overclock as much as mine. Or some of you guys are asking me, oh, how do I overclock this? How do I overclock that? Okay, so first things first is what I would always recommend. Whatever graphics card you have, there's always a quick Google search for it, right? So you could just go ahead and Google overclock settings for, like, let's say 2070, right? So like I have a 2070. So overclock settings for a 2070 for mining. There's gonna be, you're gonna find somebody somewhere has already done that information for you. What you should do is take that information and play with the settings. Find out, start with those settings. So say, for example, I'm gonna give you my overclock settings right now for my 2070, right? Let me go ahead and pull that up so that way I have it in front of me. I don't have my glasses on. Okay, so my overclock settings right now for my 2070, I have my core clock at plus 100, my memory clock at plus 1000, I have my power limit set at 60, and my fan speed at 58. And there's a couple of reasons why I have certain things set a certain way. One, I'm running 3 GPUs off of a 850 watt power supply. So I have to be aware of my power limit on my cards because I don't want them drawing too much power, because then that'll cause the system to crash. I have the hiccups now. Great. That's important to remember, not the hiccups thing, the power supply thing. That's important to remember because as the GPUs get newer and the performance increases on them, or you go up the ladder as far as going from the 60 to the 80 to the 90 and all that stuff, you have to remember that the more performance you get out of the card, the more power it's going to draw. Okay, so first thing you have to always consider is the power limit. Okay, if you're running more than one card, be aware of the power limit, because when you're mining, you're using the GPU to 100% of its performance. So if you don't limit the power, if you leave it at 100% for the power limit, guess what? It's going to be drawing 100% of whatever power it's supposed to draw. So the 2070, for example, I think at 100% power, it draws about 220 watts. So I have to reduce that power limit. Same thing on the 3060 that I have. The 3060, I think at 100% power, draws 220 watts or somewhere around there. It's very similar to the 2070. So I have to limit that power. And if you don't do that, then you're going to cause crashes in your system. Now, as far as the memory clocks go, so say, for like I said, in my 2070, I'm running my memory clock at 1000. Well, you might have a 2070 that you can run higher than that. You might have a 2070, it might run lower than that. The only way to know is start at that 1000 mark, because you know that I'm running it. So just start at the 1000 mark and run it for, 5-10 minutes, see if it causes any crashes. If you don't see any crashes, okay, cool, then you can start playing from there. Raise it up a little bit, every 25 on the memory clock. Don't do more than that, because then you're playing with it. You don't want to jump 100 and then it crashes. So do 25 at a time. Do 25. Let it run for 5 minutes. It's working. Awesome. Do it again. Another 25. So on and so forth. You keep doing it over and over until you get to a stable point. Keep in mind also, when it comes to different algorithms, that certain algorithms might not like having a higher memory clock. For example, Excavator. Okay, right now I have my 2070 mining on Excavator, mining for Ethereum. Excavator does not like having a memory clock like ridiculously high. I could put, if I'm running my 2070 on, say, like Octopus Miner, and mining for Conflux, then I could set my memory clock on my 2070, because it'll handle it, to 1300, and I'll be good. But because Excavator, mining for Ethereum, Excavator doesn't like me being that high on the memory clock, it starts giving me an error saying that memory clock is too high. So you have to be aware of certain things like that too. So it just depends on what you're mining. It's again, I want to reiterate, not every card is made the same. Like I had a 1080 that when I was mining on the 1080, mining on Excavator using the ETH enlargement pill, because you can use the ETH enlargement pill for the 1080 and 1080 Ti. Guess a conversation for another day. If I ever get my hands on another 1080, that way I can show you. The 1080, I couldn't overclock it more than, I think it was like 400 on the memory clock when I'm mining. If I'm not mining, yeah, I can crank that shit up like crazy. Like I could crank it up if I was running the 1080, I could crank it up to about I think 800. It was a Gigabyte WindForce 1080. I could crank it up to plus 800 on memory clock for gaming, and it would run stable, and it was pretty damn solid, and it would stay cool too. So, again, that's just something to keep in mind when it comes to mining. Mining is vastly different from gaming. Gaming, you're not always running the cards at 100%. In fact, a lot of the games really don't push most of the cards that high, because most games are made for consoles, and the consoles are typically less powerful than a PC would be. So just keep that in mind. When you're mining, you're running your card at 100%. So you need to be able to control the cards so that way they don't cause crashes or problems in the future. You want the longevity of your cards to last as long as possible. You don't want your cards to burn out. You don't want to have to continuously reapply thermal paste and thermal pads and all of that stuff. Eventually mining won't be so effective, and you would like maybe those cards to be used for gaming, or video editing or rendering or whatever. So it's just things to keep in mind when you're overclocking. And I hope that I was able to answer some of your questions when it comes to overclocking. If you have any more comments, yeah, if you have comments, leave the comments. But if you have any more questions, leave them down in the comment section. Maybe I'll do another video where, for whatever question that you might have. This is just a question that I keep getting, and so I figured, okay, it'd warrant another video. Why not? I don't have a problem with that. It's fun. That went down the wrong way. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Happy mining.